up, everybody? We are back for episode, what is this, Frank?
Oh, this will probably end up being episode 8.
We are back for episode 8 with Ollie and
Frank.
And we are coming to you live from Kate the Jeep. Not just parked.
Nope, not parked.
Not just at an event.
Not an event.
But on our way to Moab, Utah for Easter Jeep Safari 2019.
Yeah, one of the requests that we got on Instagram was that we do a podcast as we're heading out to Easter Jeep Safari.
Right.
So we said, you know what? That is a great idea. Let's do that.
Let's see how good Frank's equipment holds up to this.
I hope the audio sounds okay because Kate's not the quietest
on the road. There's a pretty decent drone at all times. So, as a matter of fact, I've been talking to MagnaFlow about getting a new exhaust system. This is their more extreme, kind of open exhaust, and I'm thinking maybe something a little bit more muffled. Get rid of some of that ongoing drone. So we'll see what we come up with.
So let's start at the beginning because this trip was on and then was off again, on again, off again.
Yeah,
and
speaking of devil, MagnaFlow originally was going to flow us out to Easter Jeep Safari. We were going to document it and everything with them, but unfortunately, through changing of the guard at MagnaFlow, they've got a new kind of structure going on over there. They decided to go in a different direction, which put us on the outs, which is fine. I still especially have got a great relationship with MagnaFlow. No harm, no foul. We got it figured out at the last minute when we had already decided, hey, you know what? We're done. Let's just write it off. The universe is speaking to us. Well,
yeah, it was a few minutes there where I thought for sure it wasn't going to happen.
And it was kind of like moments where we were like, oh, we're done.
Yeah, and I actually even said, I think the universe is trying to tell us,
right,
don't go.
But then just as quickly, the universe conspired to bring on Yukon Gear and Axle, who said, you know what? We'll take care of your gas and travel. And then KC, of course, our homeboys, they got us rooms.
Yeah, they really took care of us on this one and really kind of made this whole thing possible. So huge thanks to KC for room and board on this one.
Right, so it suddenly became this big scramble to get everything ready and organized and kind of like get the itinerary together, where I was just planning on a weekend with the family and then, work this week.
Yeah,
I'm asking for time off, and yeah, you too, right?
Yeah, I was just coming off a trip coming from Monterey at the Sea Otter Classic, and driving down the coast, and I was like, oh, this is happening. And taking the same thing, getting time off of work, finding out I'm only going to be home for a day to do laundry, repack, and hit the road. And that wasn't even the worst of it, because you had a list of mechanicals that you had to take care of that you were not planning on probably doing this weekend.
Correct.
Right? Because we were not going to go anywhere. And I mean, that's a pretty hefty list. You could probably just run down that too.
I mean, real quick, it wasn't a lot, but it was changing air filter, changing out the oil filter, full oil change, front diff, rear seal, replacing that, front and rear diff oil changes. It was all time consuming. And then the one thing I'm really bummed about is I was going to replace all 4 tires originally for Easter Jeep, and then when I figured it was off, I just kind of got over it, and then suddenly it was back on, and my Sunday was already written off, and so the only time I had was Sunday, which brings up a really cool topic of discussion, which is the things that you don't think about when you go to upgrade the parts on your rig.
Oh, totally. Right. You think it's really cool that you're going to go up, but there's a whole host of things that change when you go outside of the norms.
Yeah, I'm going to get 40s, I'm going 42s.
Right.
Everybody's going 38s, whatever, right? Like, you're like, I'm going to go bigger. And that's awesome. I love my 37s. I got the 37 by 12 and a half. They're great. The only issue with it is my first time getting them replaced was with America's Tire. And so I had no idea that it was not a norm.
Right. But that mounting a tire that size was not a norm, and let alone doing it on a Sunday.
Right. So what ended up happening is there's all these other tire shops open, like Big O or Ramona's and whatever, all these different places.
Right.
And they're all like, yeah, we could probably mount them, but our balancing machine can't handle it.
Right.
I was like, what? And so I'm like, okay, this other place will do it. Or Big O, I'm all, you're called Big O Tires. Like, you should be able to do it of all people. No,
Right,
they could not. So I just kind of had to check that one off as next time. And our tread is good. There was just a little bit of uneven wear. Oh, ball joints. I had to replace my ball joints with the new Synergy rebuildable ones, which are awesome. But that was part of my original issue, which is I had to replace the ball joints because I was getting a little bit of wheel hop due to my stock ball joints being worn out. So there was it was acting like a little shock, right? And my front right tire was skipping a little bit, so there's a little bit of feathering happening on the treads, which I can feel when I hit like 75, 85 miles an hour in that range. Not that I speed. So replaced them, wanted to change out the tires, didn't happen, but you know what, we're making good time. Kate, knock on wood, on all the wood, has been holding up exceptionally well. But yeah, that whole topic of not being able to replace or change a part that I thought was pretty common could relate to other things as well.
Right, absolutely. And that's actually one of the things that we were talking about on the drive up here was specifically that, because he was telling me the story, and I said, when I was really considering the suspension upgrade for the FJ Cruiser, one of the things that I was considering was long travel suspension, because once you factor everything in, the difference really isn't that much. And I thought, well,
price wise, right?
Right, price wise, yeah. You're like, you're already spending that kind of money. It's really not that much to make the hop to long travel, and I was definitely considering it. And then I started thinking, well, then I got to replace the lower control arm. I got to replace the axles. A bunch of other stuff has to be replaced to go with that long travel suspension. And I started really kind of questioning, what is this build for? What is the FJ meant to do? And for me, it's overlanding. It's not rock crawling. It's not one-day trips. It's significant length trips, and sometimes in a foreign country even.
Maybe a little rock landing.
Right, maybe a little rock landing. So I definitely want it to be capable, but it comes down to spare parts, right? And so once I start changing the axle, and I was thinking of going with a Total Chaos kit, for example. Once I start changing the axle, I can't just throw any axle from a Toyota anywhere in the country. I can't just walk into it.
It's an aftermarket part.
Yeah, at that point, it's an aftermarket part. It's a specialty part, and I have to really start hunting for it or carry them with me. And that kind of that lack of reliability, I shouldn't say lack of reliability, the difficulty in getting parts when you're in a bind really kind of is what kept me from doing it.
It's the types of things you just don't consider.
Right. Or at least not out of the gate, right? When you're thinking of it's how glamorous and fun it would be to have long travel, you don't consider that those spare parts are now very specific, right? They're no longer off-the-shelf Toyota parts that you can get from any dealer in the country. Or even in a foreign country. I can get that part. If I go to Mexico, I can still go to a Toyota dealer and get those parts, at least, within a reasonable amount of time. But once I go to a very specific custom length spindle or axle, now I have to get it from that person in that, at that location in the U.S.
No, it's a great point you bring up, because we've basically thrown the entire Icon catalog at Kate.
Right.
But with that, I still have all the same link sizes as stock.
Right.
Granted, they're a little adjustable, but I could get home on what I have. If I had to get a stock JK upper link for the front of the suspension. So that's an amazing point that I never even considered, because a couple buddies like Marco and Eric, they went long travel.
Right.
And so I was like, oh man, that would be awesome. And I kind of talked to my buddy Jeremy over at Icon. He goes, you know what? First of all, you're not getting that much more. But then to your point, it's wow, then you're dealing with specialty parts that you might not be able to replace.
Right. Or you have to carry them
on the trail. Yeah, or you carry extras.
You got to carry all that stuff with you.
And that's a lot of weight.
That's a lot of weight. Yeah, absolutely. Those parts definitely add up, and we're already carrying a bunch of stuff. So, maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm not, to each his own, but I definitely sided with, I wanted the more readily available, cost-effective part if I was ever in a bind to be able to fix my rig.
I don't think when it comes to overlanding, I don't believe a word that you would describe to overlanders would be underthinking it.
That's true.
This is a community and group of people who truly do overthink and consider all options.
Right.
Whether it's upgrading the rigs or, you know, the routes that they're going to take. There's a lot of thought. So, you know, all of these points of perspective are great for me because, you know, like we like to say, I'm new to this. I'm new, and it's only been like about a year that I've really been involved heavily into like overlanding and being part of the community. This is great. This is like all these frames of mind, all these frames of like, you know, points of view. They're just going to make me better down the line when I'm doing this on my own or being out there like, you know, 60, 80, 100 miles away from civilization. And, you know, good thing I considered these points before I took off on my trip, right?
Totally. Yeah, these are things that, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, like we talked about in the beginning in this podcast, that you're learning with us, right? And even if you don't agree with us, or you think your situation is different, at least you're considering the option, right? You're like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Dude, I'm learning with us.
Yeah, it doesn't apply to me, but great, right? So, you know, definitely consider your options and make those decisions when you're thinking about upgrades or spare parts. You know, I'm still getting upgraded shocks and, you know, an upgraded upper control arm, but one, they're both incredibly reliable.
Well, you took your time.
I did take my time. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and we talked about that in a previous episode, right? Where you kind of use your vehicle, explore kind of its strengths and weaknesses, and then also what your specific needs are, right? Because those will change.
Correct.
Those will change as you get better and as you kind of begin to better understand your needs. And you don't want to get something now because you just have to have something,
right,
and then spend the money again 6 months later. Because I don't know about you, but, you know, I'm definitely not made of money, and I definitely can't afford to make this expense twice.
Sure. I mean, it's kind of difficult in the kind of society we live in where it's like immediate gratification.
Yeah.
You expect to get it and get it now. And especially for you, I'd imagine it'd be kind of difficult because you run the OC Rigs and Coffee event. So you're always looking at everybody else with their
100%.
rigs all built up.
Yeah, I see rigs every month that are built. Some of them are starting out. Some of them are built like to the nines. And, you know, I definitely get like a little envy, right? I'm like, damn, that would be so cool to be able to run long travel, total chaos, long arm kit, you know, the whole 9 yards. Or, oh, that'd be cool. So cool to, you know, put on fiberglass fenders and put a roll cage in, and
right.
And then there's the opposite end of the spectrum where guys build like really hardcore overland vehicles that are, you know, they can live out of for a week or two. Like it's, yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, it depends on what's realistic for you, and neither of those two scenarios are realistic for me, to what I want to do, at least not yet.
For sure. I mean, speaking of overland and your rig, so this is all kind of like a first for you as far as like really starting to build up Truckee.
Yeah. Truckee has been kind of like I want to say a slow build, but not really like, it's been mostly utilitarian, right? So how can I carry more things? How can I get more storage? How can I maximize the space that I have? And more importantly, maximize the platform, right? The fundamental platform of the FJ Cruiser before I start really like adding, you know, the suspension and other like enhancing features. I
mean, your build kind of reminds me of the approach that Adam from Everyman Overland has taken on his rig, where he's got that 02 Colorado,
right.
He's been so methodical in every step, same as you.
I think he's been more methodical than me.
Sure,
like, that build
I don't think there's a lot of people as methodical as Adam, given what he does, especially like with BFG and like all the. We'll get him on here to talk about it one day with Olaf. But for you, it's like it's been like the base needs. You've got a tent that you love. You've been camping on the ground for a while.
Yeah.
Like on all these different things that we've done.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of like you're starting to step it up to like full rig independent.
Right.
Like no ground camping. Well, maybe, but you're starting to like transition over to the rooftop tent, right?
Yeah. I'm warming up to the idea of a rooftop tent. For the longest time, I was kind of hesitant to go down that road. For me, I've always been okay with sleeping on the ground. I've never really felt the need to get off the ground when it came to sleeping. Mostly because, you know, a lot of the terrain that we've gone to have been campgrounds, and the ground's fine. I mean, you know, you put a mattress down, and you know, and now that I've got that program figured out, where I've got a great mattress pad and a great sleeping bag,
right?
Like that is like the least of my problems, right? So, but now that I'm getting into kind of trying to going a longer distance and also spending less time at camp,
sure,
you know, because that's one of the things that's kind of evolved with what we're doing is, you know, it used to be about going out there and spending 2 or 3 days in a location, and now I'm finding that what I really enjoy is kind of like what Eric talked about, right?
Just getting out there
and putting down miles.
Yep.
You know, so I don't want to spend, you know, 6-8 hours in a campsite, you know, aside from sleeping. I want to pack it up and move.
Yeah, you're going over the land. You're not staying on the land. You're not.
Yeah.
They would call it camping otherwise.
Yeah,
right?
and again, nothing wrong with that, right? Like it's just for me, my enjoyment in this particular kind of hobby is seeing the outdoors and experiencing and kind of exploring the terrain. Right. And so, you know, I'm sure at some point I'll stop and kind of take it in for a day in one location if it's, you know, gorgeous or whatnot, or for a special event.
Right.
You know, but for the most part, my enjoyment, I love driving. I love driving my vehicle. I love kind of covering ground.
I mean, and you get to see a lot of, like, you know, America and like all the beauty that it has.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of which, one thing that really like kind of stood out to me right now is I just passed an 80-mile-per-hour sign, and you don't get that in California at all.
You don't get that in California.
I'm like, that makes perfect sense. That's a good limit right there.
Yeah, I heard actually that there's talk of expanding the speed limit in California for certain sections, of actually removing the speed limit, like Autobahn style.
Oh, Autobahn style.
Yeah. And so I don't know how far that's going to go, but Utah definitely has that going for it, where 80-mile-per-hour speed limit and gas is a buck less a gallon.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too off track, because I want to go back to why you're building up Truckee and the urgency, but Germany has a pretty solid culture in high-speed driving, where licensing for vehicles is held to a higher standard
totally
than in America. So when I hear things like, oh, like, you know, we're going to make it Autobahn style, that gives me a little
it does make me nervous. Yeah,
it makes me want to pause a little bit and be like, hey, have we thought this through? Because everybody and their grandma literally can get their license, and I'm not sure that everybody should be on a road where there is no speed limit.
And especially like we have a problem right now everywhere, right, where people can't get out of the left lane to begin with, and the Autobahn is super strict about being in the left lane only for passing, right? And so we can't even do that now. Like, I can't imagine when people are like hauling.
We can't even get off our phones out here.
Exactly.
We can't even get off our mics when we do our podcasts in the car.
Right. I don't know if yeah. I'm not sure. Now I'm wondering how I feel about setting this example.
You can't take away my phone or my microphone.
These are not handheld mics.
If it has the word phone in it, it's in my hand.
These are hands-free wireless mics that we're using.
I mean, it's on the dash. But no, I mean, totally safe, and
yeah, be safe.
We're
always.
Good. Anyways, so going back to Truckee, and basically the urgency piece is you're coming with us.
Yeah, so I'm joining you and the rest of the KC crew on a run from Southern California out to Overland Expo
in Arizona.
Arizona, right? So we'll have, I think, one stop on the way, right? We'll stop
to Williams, which is the KC facility. Can't wait to see that and meet the crew over there. I mean, through and through, like, I don't think I've met a single person from KC I haven't liked.
Right.
Randy's a little questionable. I don't know about that guy. I'm kidding. I love Randy.
Kidding.
Love you, Randy. But yeah, like, just, it's going to be a good time. And what's really exciting is that we're taking dirt roads for the most part all the way there.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I can't even comprehend like what that's like to cover that much distance just on dirt.
I know. I'm super fired up about it. I'm super stoked, and I'm really, like, and not to sound cheesy, but I'm really grateful for the opportunity in general that we get to do this, and that we get to bring everyone that listens to the podcast along for that trip. Yeah. Like, this is not something I would have ever done on my own or even been able to do on my own, and I'm just stoked. I'm like so fired up that this trip is happening and that we're gonna get to like total experiences with cool people. And I think Brad, Trail Recon Brad, is mapping out the route for us.
Yep.
Right. He's planning it all out. He's gonna set up the meeting point, and then we're gonna go. We're just gonna like hit the dirt and take 3 days to get out to Williams. Yep. So I'm fired up, and that's kind of the deadline to get Truckee ready to go. Right, so I guess I should kind of like just break the news on what the suspension is actually going to end up being. Right, like the final build. So we've talked about it a lot. I've talked about it a lot. So those of you that know me really well know that I've been talking about this forever. Yep. I have a stack of parts in my garage. So here's the build list of what I finally settled on for Truckee. I'm gonna do. First thing, the big thing, it's going extended travel Kings all the way around with the adjustment, rebound adjustment. So all 4 corners are going to be sitting on Kings, Resis with rebound adjustment.
Solid.
Yeah, I decided to go big on that. I saved my pennies in my jar for a nice long time, and I made that decision a while ago to go that route. Again, just based on conversations, experience, needs, and what I wanted for my vehicle personally. So plump down the chunk of change for those bad boys, and then the next piece is my upper control arms. So huge thanks to Camberg on those, because those guys make epic products, and I'm really stoked that I was able to kind of. Those things just came out. I got the kinetic uppers, which are their machined billet uppers. They look beautiful. These things are it's like jewelry.
Right on.
I also love the fact that they're just not super common, right? I love the fact that Truckee's going to have something unique. That was always kind of something that I wanted to do. That was always
pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to take this build in a different direction, but also not for the sake of being different. I still wanted it to be very functional and very, very real. Sure. So this makes perfect sense. So it's getting Camberg kinetic uppers in the front. The rear is getting Icon plus 2-inch springs from Icon Vehicle Dynamics.
Solid.
Yep, solid choice there. Those are the plus 2-inch overland springs that are going in the rear. That's going to help me kind of get that rear end up a little bit higher, but also
a lot of clearance.
A lot of clearance, and also manage the extra weight that's going to be going back there in the sag from that. So, and then to kind of top that off is the Icon hydraulic bump stops.
Right on. Yep.
So
I run those.
That's going to round all of that out, and that's my suspension plan.
Nice, man.
For the FJ Cruiser. I'm going to slap some 33s on there.
Yep.
I'm not going to go 35s just yet. I was going to, but decided not to.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you do go 35s, most tire shops can facilitate that tire.
Now we know.
It's just when you hit that 37, you're screwed.
35 is the cutoff. Yeah.
Yeah, you got one place.
Some additional little things that I'm doing just for my own peace of mind, and also for mechanical stability, is because I'm going extended travel shocks, I'm going to do a 1-inch diff drop just to alleviate some of the angle.
You're dropping the diff.
Yeah, just an inch,
okay.
And that's just to alleviate the angle on the drive shafts, because I am going extended travel, not just the normal lift. So these are a little bit longer.
Could you potentially go with an extended drive shaft instead of dropping your diff down?
I potentially could, but I don't know that someone makes one to that specific length, like to that specification. Because if you go with like a Total Chaos kit, for example, they make a +2 to go with their +2 kit. So that drive shaft is specifically the length that you need for that kit, right? So I don't think that this is it's a safer solution.
Got it.
Right, for what I'm trying to do. I'm also getting spindle gussets, right, to beef up the spindles.
Yep.
Because presumably with more travel and more capability is going to come maybe a few harder hits. So I definitely don't want those things to bend.
Sure.
So going to get some spindle gussets. Some alignment tabs will get welded on as well, for obvious reasons, right? So yeah, that pretty much rounds out.
Now, don't you guys have like a frame mount that you tend to want to like move, or
yeah,
why
so
you go with the 33s?
Yeah, that's why I'm going with the 33s, because if you want to go bigger, you got to do the body mount chop on pretty much
That's
most
right. That's what
on Toyotas, right? So the everything from I think the Tacoma, the 4Runner, and the FJ Cruiser, you have to do that. You have to chop that body mount and then weld a plate on it, cover it, and weld a plate on it, and that just allows clearance for the 35-inch tire to fit in there, right? So yeah, I'm not going that route. I decided I wasn't going 35s, so I don't need the body mount chop, and I would probably want to re-gear anyway if I went with 35s. So I figure if I'm going to go that route, I'll just do it all at once.
So what's your current tire size?
Right now, I'm at 31s.
All right, so a couple inches isn't really going to make all the difference in this case.
No, it's not going to kill
case.
Yeah, it's not going to really kill my gas mileage or do anything significant, but it is going to give me that extra meat because I am keeping a 16-inch wheel.
Got it.
So I'm going to have a lot more sidewall and a lot more meat on those tires than if I went up to like a 17 or an 18-inch wheel.
Got it. Now, as far as like bumpers go, have you started considering like anything there, or?
I have given bumpers a lot of thought. Truth be told, the FJ Cruiser actually has really great approach and departure angles.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously the reason you would want a beefier bumper is a much better, or an aftermarket bumper, I should say, is because out of the gate you get a much better departure angle, right? Especially out on the front on most aftermarket bumpers, and obviously it's the armor.
And they look mean as hell too.
They look mean as hell, but functionally speaking, right, you're getting a better departure angle, and you're getting protection, right? So the protection piece, honestly, I haven't really needed because I'm more overlanding. I'm not really rock crawling. I'm not really smashing up against things that much, and so I'm sure at some point I'll hit something. So
we will see after this trip how much of a crawler you end up becoming.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
I feel like Moab is a game changer, and a life changer as far as how a lot of people approach things. I've seen it time and time again where people go out here and they come back and they're just like all in. So it'll be interesting to see if it changes your perspective or total like outlook on whether you're into crawling or just overland or just rock landing.
Right. You know? Right. Well, I will say my father-in-law last night did tell me, he's like, be careful, they're going to try and convert you to the dark side.
Maybe we'll just get you into a Jeep and we'll call it a day.
There are going to
save you from all that other stuff.
I'm not going to lie, the Gladiators look pretty dope. And
we're looking pretty awesome.
And I'm going to tease this a little bit, but we are going to see one that is specifically pretty amazing. So I'm never say never. Nothing's impossible. But right now, considering the amount of money and work that's going in the truckie, I don't see myself backing away from trucking anytime soon.
Right. No, I think there's definitely like some emotional connection.
Oh, 100%.
Or a lot of emotional connection. And it's your girl, right? You can't turn your back on your girl.
Yeah,
not yet, anyways. Not until she's done, and then you can sell her later.
Yeah, truckie's been a great part of this whole journey, so I'm really stoked.
Awesome.
To see what happens there. And then, like you said earlier, right, the next step then is looking at, do I go rooftop tent? What do I go with? How big of a tent do I actually need?
There's so many options out there.
Oh my gosh, there's an insane amount of options out there for rooftop tents.
I'm going to try to push you into Free Spirit, but that's just, plug. But that's just, me. I like them, and they've been good to me, and
that's the nice thing.
But you're gonna be inundated with options.
Oh, totally. And you know what? I've said this before. This is a great time to be into overlanding, because never ever have you had the amount of support and the amount of knowledge being accumulated either in forums or groups or clubs or meetups. Like, there's so many meetups happening. There's so many groups that are being created for overlanding that, like, learning and getting your feet wet, it's never been easier, right? And then the second part of that is a lot of the auto manufacturers like Icon, King, Fox, suspension and rooftop tent manufacturers. There's so many of them now. Like, do you have
prices have come down?
Prices have come down. You've got your pick of some seriously awesome products, dude.
But there's still some premium companies out there.
Oh, totally.
Speaking of which.
Oh, who? James Baroud?
well,
for
no,
top 10s.
no. Well, yeah. I mean, they're definitely up there. No,
Yeah.
I'm talking about you. You got yourself another little sponsor, didn't you?
Oh,
Are we gonna talk about that, or are we gonna wait?
I think we should wait. I think we should wait
Oh,
until
man.
until it's built in.
All I gotta say is Truckie's gonna be pretty badass and pretty legit.
Yeah.
Not that she's not right now, but that is gonna be. You just don't see too many trucks with that level
That's true.
of built.
And none of this. I know that
The build quality is gonna be crazy.
Yeah, the build quality is going to be phenomenal.
I'm telling you, people, Truckie's
Yeah.
gonna be legit.
I've had some awesome support, and the one thing that I really, really, really want to hit home is that I don't want to emphasize the fact that on some of these things I got help, I got support. I'm eternally grateful, but that's not what it's about, right? Like,
It just helps.
it definitely helps. But I guess my point is that to people listening and to the average person, like, I paid for a lot of everything that's on Truckee right now, right? And I'm not saying that to get sympathy or anything of that nature. I'm saying it because
Yeah, what are you trying to say?
your build should be slow, and it should mean something to you, right? Like, it shouldn't be a race to get things done. And I know it's really easy when it seems like
I take offense to that. Okay.
I know you and I are at odds about this because Kate happened really quick.
It wasn't my fault.
And Kate is definitely
It was a bad problem to have,
Yeah, Kate is definitely a sponsored build, but
or a good problem to have.
yeah, but my point is that with Instagram, with Facebook,
Yep.
with even this podcast, like, I know it seems like everyone and their mom is sponsored, and everyone and builds happen super fast. They don't. Like, I've been in this for 3 years, which, I'm still new compared to lots of other people.
Right.
Like, I've been in this for 3 years. I've had Truckee for almost 2. Like, they don't happen fast. There is no rush. Do it right and do it to your needs, and you'll be way happier than if you were out there holding your hand out for free stuff. Because even when I went for a specific sponsor, it was because that's who I wanted to work with. It wasn't because I was like, hey, and I had the opportunity to actually ask for someone to work with, right? Like, I was in that position, but it wasn't because I was looking for anyone that made, let's just take suspension, for example, which I paid for, right? I'm not sponsored by any suspension company, right? It's not because I was like, whoever gives me free shocks is what I'm gonna run.
Right.
No, I made a conscious decision to go after, what I've got on my truck.
But Rebel is helping you too, right?
Yeah,
Rebel Off-Road.
Yeah, Rebel, as you guys know, we've mentioned them in the past. I've had a long relationship with them as well, basically since the beginning.
Good friend to have.
Yeah, they're a good friend to have. More than anything is one, their knowledge. Those guys have been doing this for a long time, and they know how to build insanely awesome vehicles and do them well. And I go to them for advice, right? Like, even with Truckee, we've gone back and forth for at least almost a year on what the actual suspension is going to be and how it's going to be built out and which parts I need to use. I've flip-flopped. I've gone from, Total Chaos to Camberg to, Dirt King to Baja Lifts. I've done so much research. I've made my own head spin. So I guess, my point is that don't rush into things, right? This is a serious amount of money that you're going to spend on your rig,
Like, to your point earlier, it's like there's a wealth of knowledge out there.
Totally.
I mean, this is my defensive moment because, as you guys know, this was a very fast build on my end. It was like from start to finish, I want to say it was about 6 months of just at it. And so instead of, I kind of do wish I would have crawled and then ran, but I basically went from 0 to 100 real quick. And I would just leverage as much of the community and your local, like, off-road shop as possible. And
Totally.
I've got a really funny story, and this is, this was by no means intended to be like a Rebel off-road plug or anything. They're just good guys, and we tend to work with them a lot.
Yeah.
And Bond has built a really cool thing over there.
Yeah.
Well, when I was working with John over at Castle Fab, and we were doing our RCV axle install, we were doing gussets and sleeves on the axles of the front axles. Well, I had to source my gussets and sleeves, and when I did that, Jacob over at Rebel was like, "Hey, you want to swap out your ball joints while you're at it?" I'm like, dude,
I was there for that, actually.
You were there?
I was actually there
No,
buying.
you were there when I returned them.
Oh, that's right.
And I'm like, you know what? it's like $200 right now that I don't want to spend. And the reality is, you know, based off of like John's experience and what he's done, his fabrication wouldn't necessarily mess with the ball joint, even though it is a plastic inner. There was always the potential though, right?
Right.
Granted, through the course of all the trails that I've done, I ended up wearing out those stock ball joints.
Right.
That made it so on Saturday, I had to spend four and a half hours of my day swapping out ball joints to the new Synergy pieces instead of swapping out my tires or doing the oil change on Saturday and spending more time at the beach with the family on Sunday, which I had to like, you know, the family went to the beach. I met them for 40 minutes. I had to leave.
Yep.
So, you know, do a little bit of the work on the advanced side instead of on the back end when maybe you could have used that time for something else.
That's the I told you so moment, right?
Where, and I called Jacob and I'm like, hey buddy, just want to kind of say this to you in person, but we'll do it over the phone. I should have done the ball joints when you said so.
Yeah, I was there for that. I think I was buying some front runner stuff from Rebel. I ordered like some Rotopacks mount for the roof and some other stuff and some Rotopacks and locks and all that kind of, you know, stuff from them. And I was in there like picking it up and Ali rolls in and I was like, oh dude, what are you doing here? And he had the box, he had the ball joints, he had them in his hand, he was returning them. And him and Jacob kind of went back and forth and Jacob was like, dude, are you sure? Yeah. I think you're gonna need them. I've done it, you know, the experience, right?
And I was in like total crunch mode. I'm like, dude, I just want to return them. I'm moving on. I got other things I got to do. Like,
I got to check stuff off my list.
Time was
at
a premium,
yeah. So, you know, and I've had the same experience, you know, with those guys. And so, like you said, not to make this a total plug, but I've come, you know, I've worked with them as a customer, right, as a paying customer, and they did a lot of installs on the FJ Cruiser so far, and their advice, and even if you end up using another shop because you don't live in California, you live in, you know, Pennsylvania or something.
Dude, people tow like, their rigs there.
They do. I will say that. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. People tow their rigs to Rebel from all over the country, but if they're too far for you and you don't have that, your local off-road shop is also a wealth of knowledge, and it pays to have a relationship with those guys, right? We tell the same people in the bike industry, right, like mountain bikers and road cyclists, I go, the first and most important relationship that you need to have is your local bike shop, right? Especially your mechanic, because that guy is gonna, these little incremental fixes, these little incremental costs prevent big problems down the road.
Yep.
So it's the same thing in off-road. I mean, you know.
I mean, it's funny. That's a really good parallel because I bought my bike from the Path Bike Shop.
Yeah.
And
that's a great shop too, by the way.
Oh yeah, they're great. And one of their locations is in like San Diego.
Right.
I think it's San Diego, between like Saddleback, San Diego.
Yeah.
But across from O'Neill Park. And they basically became a wealth of knowledge of local trails.
Exactly.
Of like conditions, stuff like that. I can call them up. They'll let me know if like stuff's closed after it rains, you know, things like that. And you get that same thing with like shops, you know.
Yep.
Call them up, talk to them, find out information about trails or find out where they're going, meet up with them. So just a good thing to do, you know?
Yep. Those are your community hubs, right? Are those places like the shops are kind of where they've got their finger on the pulse.
Yep.
Right. And they know what's going on and what's up and where things are trending, which parts are most reliable for what you want to do, which parts might be most economical for what you want to do.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Like those guys, they know what's up.
And look, when you have shops with like years and years and years of experience and reputation, you should pretty much trust that they're not trying to screw you out of like a couple $100.
Yeah,
know?
Exactly. Everyone who's worth like, you know, worth a grain of salt knows that there is no win in a short term, in like screwing over a customer short term. Right. Like nobody wins. Right. You win that one time and they're never coming back. Right. So any shop that's worth their salt is going to take care of you. And when you find one, hold on to it, man. It's like finding a good mechanic for anything else. You find a good one, hold on to them. Treat them well.
Yeah, and if you know you're getting into like overlanding again, I want to reiterate this. Like, do the little work in advance. Spend the extra couple $100 if you have to replace those like parts that people know will fail.
Right.
You know,
right.
Like
the weak points.
Attack those weak points first. Actually, one thing to that is a buddy of mine, Leo from Warehouse Auto Repair, like out in Santa Ana.
Yeah,
he's a shop I go to, just really knowledgeable, and he takes his time with everything. And one thing he told me, which was a really cool concept, was leave a weak link a cheap weak link in your suspension that's easily replaceable, and you can keep spares on yourself, so that if you like hit something, that'll break. Not a piece that's totally weak in comparison to the rest of your suspension, but just a piece that'll fail before all that expensive stuff that you installed fails.
That's interesting.
It was a really interesting point of view, and maybe one day we'll get him on to really kind of like elaborate, and like you can hear from the horse's mouth.
Right.
But when he presented it to me and the way the thought that he had behind it, I was like, damn, that makes sense.
Well, and to kind of draw from my knowledge base, right, in the bike industry, that's a common actually train of thought, because on bikes, that's the dropout. That's the rear derailleur hanger.
Okay.
Right? So the whole point of the rear derailleur hanger is that when you smash your rear derailleur, it bends, not the derailleur, not the frame. Right? It's a super cheap replaceable part that's meant to fail instead of more expensive parts like the frame. Right? So yeah, I mean, there's definitely like some logic that's used there in other industries. I'd be curious to know what part specifically he's talking about, because
I'm sure there'd have to be like a recommended piece.
Oh, totally, yeah.
But the idea, like a buddy of ours had a mishap, and he had ended up putting so much money into his rig, and then just freaking like stuffed it, and like out, like straight away out the window went all thousands of dollars in like work. And it's like, had he had a piece that maybe could have failed and saved the rest, it's kind of like a crumple zone.
Yeah.
On a vehicle chassis, on a frame. It's like that crumple zone's there, so that will crumple, and the rest of the stuff, your engine doesn't end up in your lap, right?
Right, basically.
So anyways, cool little thought, like cool way of approaching it, I thought.
I'm still kind of blown away that there's snow on these mountains, and it's like we're midway through April.
Going through Arizona, it's interesting. Like I wonder if these guys are just so used to it they never like think twice.
Right.
But it is really pretty out here just through the last hour that we've been driving.
Yeah, for context, we just rolled out of St. George, so we got back on the freeway, and that's kind of when we started recording. Was once we gassed up, got our caffeine fix, and kind of hit the road again. And here in St. George, past St. George, so we are about 3 hours from our desto.
Yep.
So I gotta say, I like this. I actually like talking in the vehicle.
I mean, we're doing it anyways. I already figured we could have recorded 2 episodes up to this point,
right? From all the conversations that we've had on the way up here. Like one of the conversations that we had and that we were really kind of got passionate about was the public works projects of like a generations ago. When you're for those of you who have kind of rolled up to 15 pads, just when you leave, when you're kind of going into out of Nevada into Arizona, you're going along the Virgin River and
those crazy canyons.
You go into these crazy canyons and you can see the drill marks, on the walls.
That's so cool when you pointed that shit out.
Yeah,
like,
where they drop dynamite to blast the walls off, right, to make room for this highway to go through.
Yep.
And like that was so long ago, at a time when projects like that were like impossible, right? They were unfathomable, right, to some people, that you really had to dream big to go, we're going to cut through these miles of mountains and build a highway, west.
Yep.
Like that's, and I think that, as a country, sometimes that ability to dream big for in the name of public works, in the name of progress, in the name of like humanity or national pride, I think that's it's kind of faded, right? Like we're kind of mired in argument and the one that comes to mind, the reason that we got on this topic, or the one that comes to mind is the bullet train. That never happened. Right,
dude,
right?
That was such a disappointment.
Such a disappointment.
Like, you want to get on a train and get to San Francisco in a single shot.
Oh, that'd be so rad.
And get up north, go vacation, whatever the hell you're going to do. Or even, like, maybe commute, I don't know. But, like, a high-speed rail system would be awesome.
And to really appreciate it, you have to go to another country that has a high-speed rail system and use it.
See how efficient it is, like Japan?
Totally.
Yep.
It's like... It's an alternative to flying in a really cool way. You see the landscape in a way that you've never seen it before, and it really just opens up your ability to explore more of what's your state, more of what's your country. It's cool.
Well, I mean, what I'll say is, and get prepared to get triggered right now, but
yeah,
you hear about make America great again. You hear this,
man.
this has been thrown around through the elections and just our current administration. I'm not going to get political, but I'm saying that concept of making America great, that starts with these types of projects of like really building America up. Like, I'm not talking about walls. I'm talking about things that get people and bring people together and like give you greater access and help make things more amazing.
Yeah, that's
in this
one
beautiful
of the things,
country that we live in.
Exactly, and you know, one
Make
of the
that great again.
Yeah, some of the example, like public works, right? We talk about like, you know, whether it's internet infrastructure or all this other stuff, but you know, the fact that we couldn't even build a bullet train just because of political incompetence is frustrating. And I don't want to get, again, I know this is getting political and we probably should never do this again.
Right.
But the fact that we couldn't even build a bullet train when generations ago they were carving through mountains, building Hoover Dam, building like, you know, going to the moon when no one else had done it before. Like the fact that we couldn't even build a bullet train across the Central Valley in California is depressing as to where we are as a country in our ability to dream big and accomplish big. Like
we had so much pride in ourselves at a certain point, and I'm not, whatever your political views are, I don't care, but like we had so much pride in ourselves. We had things like Rushmore, you know, like
right.
We built these great monuments and things that just like for the time like established like we are American, we love our country, like this is us, right?
Right. And
where is that?
And these highways, like, and this is the thing, right? You can say, and we had the same thing, right? We had this conversation in the vehicle, and I said, look, the part of the problem is that nowadays, where ignorance is bliss, right? Maybe we didn't know that we were killing the rare, you know, dirt, earth, mud
there
guppy,
is that point
right?
of view, yeah.
Like that back then, and maybe we didn't know that, you know, we were
the polka dot yellow, purple speckled gecko.
100%. I don't want to be the generation responsible for wiping out a species either, right? I get it, but you know, we did. So you know, in that regards, maybe some of that isn't possible anymore. But think of it this way: if some of these highways didn't exist and didn't take us to the far stretches of our country, our own like people, the exploration of us in this country, and people realizing, people from Kansas seeing the Pacific Northwest,
right.
People from Florida seeing the Great Plains, people from California experiencing the Grand Canyon. Those are all exponentially more possible and attainable. Dude, within reach.
It's about access.
It's access.
Yeah.
It's access. It's things that you can experience because somebody made it possible. A generation made that possible, and that's really where I'm coming from. It's not about like building great monolithic structures to glorify humanity or even to glorify ourselves as Americans. It's the fact that someone did this for the greater good, and that I think is what we're missing.
It's like the reason why one night you'll go to sleep, wake up in your tent with your child, open up the zipper and look out into Zion is because of all that.
Yeah, totally. You know, and I know that's kind of an altruistic approach to it, and obviously I'm sure we weren't around, we weren't alive back then, but I'm sure there were naysayers back then, people that didn't want to build Hoover Dam, people that didn't want to build the national highway system, you know, and all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, I personally am kind of a history buff, so I read a lot of that stuff, and I know, you know, the Great Depression and all these different things, right? And whether I was right, you know what? At the end of the day, you know, we all know this to be true. There is no reward without risk. And I think we've lost our grit for risk.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing I will say is like, you could go fill up your tank with like the best gas in the world, right? And right off the bat, you're ready to go for 200, 300 miles.
Totally.
But you get down to those fumes and you're not going too far. And you can't survive off the fumes. All right? So we need to get shit going again. Like, I want to see some amazing things get built. Like, there's no problem. There's no issue with progress as long as it's done in a responsible manner.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. And so, you know what? Like, speaking of fumes, I'd like to not pay $1 extra for gas in California just because I'm in California.
Dude, Summer Blend? You're killing me with Summer Blend.
I'm super jealous right now, man. We're driving through Utah, and for some reason, gas here is $1.30 less. I don't know why.
There's going to be snow through July in Mammoth. Keep winter blend. Give me my $1 cheaper gas. Or start manufacturing that stuff, Unless you want to come out with an electric Jeep, I'll consider that. But for now, I need cheap gas.
Yeah, so I'm gonna leave you guys with that. That's my say for the episode. I think I wasn't even planning on bringing that up. It just kind of happened. So I hope you guys don't hate us for getting somewhat quasi political or skirting around the political part.
Oh yeah, I thought you were talking about summer blends.
No, even summer blends. There's a whole different rabbit hole we can go down. But what I'm getting at is I definitely, I appreciate if you listened through that and let me get it off my chest. But I think we should pay some bills.
Let's pay the bills.
Cha-ching.
So first off, thank you to our good friends that keep the nights not so dark.
That's right.
Casey Highlights.
That's right. And in honor of Game of Thrones premiere last night, that
was a pretty good episode.
That was a pretty good episode. What does he say? The night is dark and full of terrors.
Not with KC.
Not with KC, it isn't.
So
man.
Stupid.
If you got a set of daylighters or Gravity Pro 6s, you've got the Lord of Light on your roof, man. That's all I'm gonna say.
Dude, we're joining their marketing team officially from here on out.
I've got the Lord of Light on a switch on my dashboard. What do you got?
So stupid. But yeah,
sorry, I love that show.
They take care of us. They take us. I mean, we do a lot of events with those guys. They take care of our rigs. They make a solid product for not an arm and a leg. They're one of the OGs. They're one of the roots companies within the off-road game, and definitely a heavy presence in overlanding. So stoked to be part of the family.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys. We appreciate your support. And, per the usual, I think, Ali, does that offer still stand?
Yeah, dude. Just like I said, DM me. I've already had people
either
take
one of
me
us
up on it.
Yep.
Stoked to give it to you. But just send me a text through Instagram, and we will get you sorted.
You can hit us up at Kate the Jeep. You can hit me up at Trucky McTruckface, or you can DM us directly at Rigged for Dirt. We'll make sure you get a little something.
We actually have an event special that we'll be posting on Instagram.
Oh yeah, that won't be on this podcast.
Not on this podcast, but
this event will be long over.
It'll be on Instagram, so we can't give out that code on here. But
right.
Again, just DM us, either of us, and we will have a Rigged for Dirt code for you guys, so Frank or I can help you out with that.
Yep. Also, huge thanks to a sponsor that's been with us from the beginning, Rigged Supply, RIGDsupply.com. Check them out. Obviously, they have their Ultra Swing. We have talked a lot about it. I'm looking forward to getting one of those on Trucky to complete kind of my build and gear carrying options. But also, don't forget, those guys supply a lot more than just the Ultra Swing, even though that is probably one of their most coolest kits of badassery right now. Check them out for other overlanding gear and needs.
I got their hitch extension.
Oh yeah, how's that been working out?
Well, so Rhino sent me their 2-bike carrier.
Yep.
And then right off the bat realized it's not going to work. I kind of figured it wouldn't.
The bike carrier is not going to work.
Yeah, it hits because I have the Evo cage, the caged Evo, 37-inch
tire carrier,
tire carrier. So I needed at least a couple inches in order to clear the carrier. And sure enough, with their extension, it clears perfect. We discovered that to use the stock hitch mount, we will need to drop it though. So they're talking about creating an elbow now that'll drop it about an inch and a half, which will then be money. So then I can swing down the bike carrier and clear the tire as it swings out.
Yep.
But right now I can get my bike if I don't plan on opening up the rear end, and it's solid.
See, this is why I like Rig Supply, because they immediately noticed something that could be improved, took note, and there you go, right? Yep. So last but certainly not least, because I think we should give them a shout out because they are sponsoring the fuel for this trip and making this possible.
So happy.
So Ali, why don't you do the honors?
Yeah, I mean, when I set out to do my build, one of the companies that I connected with was Yukon Gear and Axle, owned by Randy's Worldwide, and they've been nothing but supportive. I run their gears. They put me in touch with RCV. Just really good guys. And when I told them about MagnaFlow changing direction and that we were kind of on the outs, they came in. They said, "Hey, we got your gas. Just get out here. We got some great runs. So we're gonna do a night run with them tomorrow night.
Oh, that'd be rad.
On Tuesday night after the Warren run." and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be an awesome time. I'm expecting it to be an awesome time, and yeah, just looking forward to a bigger relationship with them as we go.
Yep, absolutely.
But
Thanks, guys.
They're not the last people. One last thing,
all right,
which is something near and dear to you, is you've connected with a charity, right?
Yes, I have. I don't have the full approval and all the details just quite yet, but I will give them a plug because they deserve it.
They're
and
near
you guys,
dear.
and you, what's that? Yeah, they're near and dear, and you guys should definitely check them out. And they're called Gear Forward. And what they do is they take old, used, or even new donated gear, and they give it to underprivileged children so they can experience the outdoors, right? So it's something that, to me, I think the outdoors in general is this is where we're gonna kind of hit the soft spot and tug at the heartstrings a little bit. So sorry, but look. This is the way that I see it, right? Is
get your Kleenex out.
Yeah, this is the way that I wish I had music like the little violin. This is the way that I see it, is that one of the most amazing things that getting out does for you is it gives you perspective, right? It exposes you to some of the most amazing things that are out there, and it also expands your horizons as to what's possible, right? If you're an inner city kid and all you see around you is, crime and streets and drugs and police and the daily grind and misery and all this stuff, right? Yeah. Like, it's really hard. It's really easy to kind of lose perspective on the adjacent possible.
Thinking that there's nothing else out there.
Thinking there's nothing else out there, right? That this is your world. And the reality is it's not, right? And so sometimes these kids, they just need perspective. They need to know that they can do more, that it's attainable, and that someone is willing to help them do it, right? And so, Ollie him and I had a conversation about a family member going through a challenge, and a young person, and how sometimes all these people need to deviate off their current path is just some help, man, a different direction, some perspective, and to know that, look, I grew up in an inner city, and I never did rock climbing. I never did even mountain biking until I was 16 or 17. And it's because I just thought that wasn't for me. That's something those rich kids did, Right. And the reality is that's not true. Anyone can do it, but you don't know that when you're a kid growing up in an inner city. So anyways, can
I piggyback off that a little bit?
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, we grew up like lower class, I would say. Like, we lived in a nice apartment building, but in downtown crappy ass Long Beach at the time. Long Beach is, always going to be near and dear to me, and I hope to one day return. But where we lived was a shithole. I used to have to fight kids, like little gangbangers, for my toys.
Oh, totally. Same here.
I knew the corner drug dealer because my dad would buy weed from him. Like, it was that kind of life.
Yeah.
And his name was Spider. And basically, my dad, though, for all his faults, he would take us to Sequoia every year. And that, I think, helped to broaden my perspective and my mind. So when you told me about this charity organization, and you're like, hey, would you be interested in us kind of helping to boost it or promote it?
Right.
I know you were already doing with OC Rigs and Coffee, but for the podcast as well. Dude, 100% on board. We need this. They need it. If we can help it happen, let's make it happen.
Yeah, 100%. So long story short, if I have a call with them to kind of help them create a drop-off zone in Orange County to collect this gear, dude. And that's going to be ongoing. It's not going to be a one-time thing. It's going to be an always thing. I'm in OC Rigs and Coffee in Laguna Hills. That happens once a month on the first Saturday of the month. If everything goes to plan, it's going to be an official drop-off location for all of your used gear that you want to donate, or new gear that you want to donate, and I'll stuff it in the FJ, take it home, and I'll deliver it to Gear Forward. So if you want to learn more about them, it's gearforward.com, or just shoot any of us a message and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. But I hope this relationship works out, and even if it doesn't, I'm still going to donate gear to those guys. Yes. And you should too. So on that note,
you got a 10 from me.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. On that note, thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for sitting with us. I hope the audio turned out great in Kate. She's a little noisy, but I hope you can hear it. You can reach me at Trucky McTruckface on Instagram, and
Kate the Jeep on Instagram.
Also, don't forget to visit Rigged for Dirt at riggedfordirt.com and Rigged for Dirt on Instagram. And on that note, thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
Take care, guys.